Hello, dear friends. Welcome to this program, our Moments with God. And as I often repeat on this program, the words of St. Augustine: O God, you have made us for yourself, and our hearts are restless until they rest in thee. And I'm sure this nature that you see, the cows grazing here, they too are creatures of God, and somewhere in their hearts, I am sure they too feel this desire to be united with God. And what they are doing now, grazing here in these lovely meadows, they are also somehow connected to the divine. And I'm sure we too, while doing our ordinary tasks, become aware of God's presence and become aware of our need and restlessness for God. And if you like the video, you may please share it with others. Thank you. Now quickly, yesterday we celebrated the feast of Saint Pope John the 23rd, and we mentioned that he is the one who initiated the Second Vatican Council, which brought about a lot of reforms in the church. I don't know as a viewer how old you were in 1958 when he was elected the Pope. I was very young, I was only 7 years old. But when he died in 1963, I was already 11 years old. I don't know how old you were. But if you remember, the church before his death, the church was an old-fashioned church with all emphasis on rules and regulations and Latin Mass and what have you. Then he brought about a lot of reforms, and I also mentioned that Pope Francis, through the synod that is going on right now in the church, last year also there was a session of synod, and right now there is one going on in Rome. He too is trying to bring about reforms in the church. But you know, reforms in the church or reforms in Christianity is nothing new, really. If you look at the reading, today's first reading from the letter of St. Paul to the Galatians, he is trying to make a very interesting distinction which I think can help us a lot. And that is, he is trying to say that earlier the scriptures and what we believed was all about the law, the rules and the law. The law, it was that if you kept the law properly, you would be led to God. Although he is saying that this law was also necessary for us to lead us to Christ, but then he makes a very clear distinction that now we have done away with law, now we have Christ himself. And our faith in Christ is what brings us salvation. So he is making a distinction in the whole letter of St. Paul to the Galatians. He is constantly making distinction between the law, that earlier we used to live by law, and saved by law. Now we are no more saved by law, but we are saved by our faith in Christ. In other words, Christ it is who saves us. This was already a reform that he brought right at the beginning of Christianity. But I am sorry to say that a lot of us still in the church think of abiding by law. Actually, they think that it is by keeping the laws that we are saved or we become good persons. What Christ was teaching and what Christ was doing, if you remember well, I have often mentioned on this channel, he broke the Sabbath, he ate with sinners and tax collectors, he forgave that adulterous woman who came and said that whoever among you has not sinned should take the first stone and throw at her. And I think that was a very important teaching there, that those of us who try to abide by law expect others to abide by law, and we take it as our responsibility to correct others, as if we have already reached a stage of perfection and therefore we have a right to tell others how they should live, rather than living by what Christ is teaching us. Christ is teaching us constantly to be loving, to be forgiving, to be for the poor, and including bring reforms. Reforms in the church, reform in society, but first of all, reform in ourselves. Because without reforming ourselves, we cannot progress. And St. Paul sets the ball rolling, taking things that Jesus already had brought in. So our faith in Jesus is not just something abstract, something in the air, something in the vacuum. Our faith in Jesus makes us follow what He is teaching, how He lived, and how we can live our life, constantly reforming ourselves. It is not enough that the church reforms itself through the Vatican Council or through Synod. The church is the people of God. And unless the people of God, you and I, make reforms in our life, there will be no reform in the church. Can we begin then today onwards to look at ourselves and see where we require reforms? I wish you all the very best, and if you have not subscribed to the channel, you may please do it now. Thank you.